If I go into any meeting, I want to have an agenda and I want to have a tool. And I'll explain the projection of the tools in a minute. But if I were going into a unit council meeting, I would say, let's say we're going to talk about how to improve things. So what does great look like? What are you guys hoping for on your unit? Or given this, what would it look like if it was fully implemented and we were all, using the tool well? Like, what would great look like, basically? What do you want? I ask people, and they can make this list. It just flies out of their mouth, right? Because this is what they judge other people on. They know what great's not. And so this is normally where you stop and you take the list and you put it in your pocket as a leader. You go, I'll go work on this. Let me go change your culture, your environment, your climate, your work experience, your teamwork. Let me go change all of this. This is typical engagement planning. I heard on the survey you struggle with X. Tell me more, complain more to me about it so I can get a true understanding, right? And so basically this is what do you want in your workplace? Like, what do you want different, okay? Now, when I go into a meeting, instead of just having one sheet up there and I am the scribe for your venting, I need to move your toggle switch. So I go in and I put 3 sheets up. And when people come in and we work on one, so first the visual is 3 sheets. We're not just gonna exhaust this sheet. So I go, okay, I think I get a pretty good idea. Now, what are you willing to do to get that? A pretty big list of stuff that you want. I love this. This would be an awesome workplace. So what are you willing to do to get that? And most people will be like, well, what do you mean? I'll wait for it. I'll be here when you get back. How did I get involved in my workplace? Like, what are you doing? You are, this is wizardry. This is where we bring in accountability shared. This is where we start. We start with you. What are you willing to do? Now, most people run the clock at this moment because you only allow an hour, which I don't recommend you do more. But people run the clock because they know you have a deadline and you didn't plan well. And so you'll try this, but the ego will stall you out. And you'll take this and then you'll go make the plan because you have a deadline. And you put it all together, hand it in, and it will be all your plan again. I don't. I go, you know what? We didn't get as far as we need to get. We have to get this list to be robust enough to match that list. It has to actually have an ability to make a dent in it. So I'll take both of those and put them in a private area, like break room or something, and I'll say, okay, well, we'll keep thinking. And so we're gonna have this list up for the next month, and we're just gonna keep, when you're on break, write something down. And then I go to my highest accountables, and I prime the pump. I go, do you have an idea? Yeah, but I didn't wanna bring it up. I go, well, that's why I put it in privately. Go write your idea up, okay? And so we start building this. When this gets robust enough to actually make a dent in this, then I put the third list up. What, as your organization or your leader, can we do to support or resource this? Because the only part of your engagement I own is lack of abuse and resource and support. Like, that's it. And so you can tell me what I could do. But what happens a lot of times is they wanted this list and this list to be the only thing we ever talk about. So when it comes to shared governance, I've always got to be putting in this accountability list. Let me give another example. When I used to go in on Mondays, in the olden days, before we had everything electronic, I would get these reports on how either my patients were unsafe or it happened to me in manufacturing. Like, who didn't do what over the weekend, right? You walk in, you get this big list of tattling and complaining. And I'm like, why am I always walking into this list? And I looked at the sheet and it said, if you see something unsafe, describe it, report it. Yeah, we want those issues raised up. But then it gave you the whole page to tell your story of it with no self-reflection. So I even changed how we report things, and I just moved to the top line what I saw that I was concerned about. Okay, or what I came to know about. And I gave them like 2 lines. And then I didn't give them a whole page to complain. The next prompt was, and what I did about it in the moment was. And I had to reflect. How did I address it in the moment, peer to peer? The next line was, and what I did to ensure that the next shift gained, value or passed this on, basically. Like how it was carried through on the next shift. I can't remember how it was exactly worded. And then the fourth thing, what I wanted to be part of going forward to fix this more systemically. So now people were reporting, but do you hear how I built in the shared accountability? I want you, when you leave here as a leader, everything you pick up to see if it reinforces shared accountability or if it reinforces victimhood. Everything you pick up, you'll start to see it. So this is called engaged action planning, and it divides up, because here's what we know, another difference between low and high accountables. If somebody in low accountability is suffering, it is the organization's problem. I suffer, you're not serving me. If somebody's high in accountability, they sort differently. They go, oh, I'm suffering. I want things different. What's my part and what's your part? And they go, what's my part? And then what's left over is the organization's part. Now that doesn't mean you can be a crappy organization, but most of your organizations are far from, there's no danger of them being crappy. So this venting in the form of a survey is a problem. We had a culture of safety survey in a hospital. Their mortality rate was the second lowest in the nation. That's how many people die in your organization. Okay, in the nation, that's pretty impressive, right? You guys know how tough this is. And it wasn't that they had some easy population. Like they had a high immigrant population, they had like bad stuff going on. Their culture of safety survey in pharmacy, right, was rock bottom. It didn't even show up in the bottom quartile. It was like, this place is so unsafe. Now, I look for inconsistencies across data sets. There could be some places we need to improve, but we're pretty safe. I mean, people aren't dying of some of these things. So I went in and I said, well, this survey, we got to clean up the survey. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, first of all, let's look at if people are venting in the form of a survey. So if you have a Likert scale of 1 to 5, okay, and there's 60 items on the survey, and there's people whose answers only vary between 1 and 3. That's all of their answers were, it sucks. How can everything, this is lack of sophistication in a survey. Even in a divorce marriage, people go, well, no, she's a 5 on this. She's been a great mom, but if you don't have any variance, that's venting. If you're not venting, you should have full variance, where some things are good, some things aren't good. So we threw out anything that had no variance and called it unsophisticated survey taking. And then we got to the real issues. Where there was big variance, we go, look there. And there were some things pharmacy brought up in the culture of safety survey that needed to be fixed. But a lot of people are just saying it's all bad. They aren't sorting. So then we added accountability questions to it. And the accountability questions matched, when we only listened to mid and high accountables, they matched the data without this lack of variance. So when we threw out the 1s and the 3s, if that's all you ever answered, okay, not if you answer that, but if that's all you ever answered, and we matched that up against medium and high accountables, and it was the exact same data. And that was one of the ways we know that our accountability questions clean up your survey data. That's why when we give engagement questions, we give accountability questions, so you can listen to the right people. Your data's corrupt. The part that's coming through the ego and not the sophisticated high self, that data given to you through the lens of ego is corrupted data. And most of you are making big money decisions based on corrupted data.